What on earth is happening with the Bay Area housing market? It's truly unexplainable what's happening. Or is it? Coming up on this week's Silicon Valley Snapshot. The Bay Area housing market is on fire, and this has not been front page news for a very long time. Today, the March stats reports for the Bay Area housing markets have finally been released by Trend Graphics, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over the newest data. But before we get into the numbers, before we get into the data, if you're a home buyer in today's Bay Area marketplace and you're looking for any sort of data to help you in your home buying decision making, you can go ahead and text the word data plus the area or the zip code or the neighborhood that you're looking in, and we'll get that information sent straight to your inbox. And if you're a home seller in today's marketplace and you're looking for a comprehensive data set to help you decide, is now the right time for me to sell my house? When should I sell it? When should I put it up for sale? And what should I price it for? Because obviously pricing strategy matters enormously in this market. And so all of that information will be sent straight to your inbox when you text the word data plus your property address to the number down below. For most Bay Area home buyers, this spring season will be the most challenging. It will be the most trying spring season that we have ever seen in the history of the Bay Area housing market. And it's not even going to be close. Honestly, the amount of competition that we have relative to the amount of supply is inconceivable. Truthfully. And right now, case in point, let's flip on over to the Santa Clara County data so that you can just see, get the preview for what we're seeing in most Bay Area counties right now. In February of this year, we had 611 homes for sale versus 1,170 homes pending. That's nearly double the amount of homes pending as there are active right now. The demand right now is insatiable. You look back a year ago and we had almost the same amount of homes pending at 1,200 homes pending and 900 homes on the market. So the amount of inventory has been reduced by a third, and the competition has remained the same in Santa Clara County. So you can imagine, last year it was a really difficult buyer's market. It was very hot. Homes were going $100,000, $200,000 over list price. And now we're in a market where the amount of competition has stayed the same, and the inventory levels have been reduced by a third. Therefore, putting even more pressure on home buyers during the spring season. Flipping on over to San Mateo County, we had 470 homes pending versus 321 homes on the market. So much less aggressive market conditions. But when you compare that to a year ago, where even in San Mateo County, it was a really hot market in San Mateo County a year ago, where basically pending and inventory levels were practically the same. 464 homes on the market, 449 homes pending. Essentially, for all intents and purposes, a 1-to-1 ratio. So right now, we're basically seeing almost a 30% decrease in inventory levels with a very slight decrease in pending activity. And so the market is much more aggressive, much more competitive than this same time last year in San Mateo County. One thing I want us to observe here, specifically in San Mateo County, is how drastically pending activity has varied from this year as opposed to last year. You look at last year's pending activity, it went up about 20% from January to February versus this year from January to February. The pending activity went up nearly 40%. So basically a doubling in terms of velocity from January to February. How could that possibly be? Well, the secret lies in the fact that we typically actually see the reverse effect, where for many years I've talked about this trickle down theory, where a lot of what happens in the mid-peninsula, the activity level, the competition in the mid-peninsula tends to trickle down and trickle out to the East Bay, to the South Bay. Well, this year, the East Bay and the South Bay has been just an atrocious time for home buyers. And so they're all flocking back to the mid-peninsula. So what you're seeing is a lot of the buyers that would typically be buying in Contra, Costa, and Alameda County and Santa Clara County, well, they're all getting priced out of their homes, and they're thinking, wait, why don't I just go back? There's less competition in San Mateo County. And that's where everyone wanted to be beforehand, but they got priced out of those markets. And so now they're being priced back in by the homes in those surrounding areas, the East Bay and Santa Clara County, getting to the level that San Mateo County is now at. And this concept isn't new. We see this all over the Bay Area where there's this ebb and flow between, A areas and B areas, A areas and B areas. And by no means am I saying the East Bay or Santa Clara County are B areas, but we're seeing this ebb and flow of buyer traffic simply due to the competition levels in certain areas where before we were seeing more competition in the Mid-Peninsula. Now we're seeing more competition in the outer parts, and they're starting to come back in. They're being driven back in by the competitive environments in those counties. So let's pay attention to San Mateo County, because I have a gut feeling that March and April, we're going to see a huge surge in pending activity in San Mateo County due to the fact that a lot of home buyers are getting priced out and they just want less competition. So they're going to go to San Mateo County where they only have to go up against 5 offers as opposed to competing against 15. And plus, flipping over to San Benito County, as expected, we saw a surge in pending activity in February. We now have 50 homes pending in San Benito County versus 41 homes on the market. For the first time in a while now, we're starting to see pending activity really outpace supply in the San Benito County area. And by no means is it a lot, but it is still outpacing very hot, very competitive sellers market. And keep in mind that we're seeing new construction levels like never before in San Benito County. And this is not including new home sales. And so we're seeing this amount of demand relative to supply, despite the fact that there are many new home communities in that area that have waiting lists. They have long lines. And so all of that demand is withstanding, or this marketplace, I should say, is withstanding that increase in supply. And oh my gosh, if we didn't have those new home communities, I would hate to see what would be happening right now in San Benito. It would be carnage. So flipping over to Alameda County. Now we're seeing something very similar in Alameda County as we did last year, where we're seeing demand outpace supply tremendously in the early part. February, we can expect March and April to continue to climb. If history tends to repeat itself, which we know it does, especially here in the Bay Area, we see March and April in Alameda County being the most competitive months, and we're priming up for that again. We're seeing that ramp up that we saw in Alameda County last year. The same thing is happening this year, and I expect to see it happen in Alameda County and also in Contra Costa County, where we're seeing a very similar ramp up as we did last year in Contra Costa County. So we can expect the same thing to happen this year. Only that inventory levels are even more suppressed this year in Contra Costa County as they were last year, which is only going to ignite the market that much more. Then flipping over to San Francisco. Now, not too much to discuss here other than in the late winter months of last year, we saw what could be signs of a resurgence in the San Francisco market. And in January, we got this rude awakening where, hey, not so fast. It's not coming back that quickly. And keep in mind, we are still in way better shape here in San Francisco than we were a couple of years ago during COVID. It was atrocious how many homes were on the market in comparison to the amount of homes that were pending. It's not like that anymore. We're seeing a fairly stable ebb and flow in buyer demand. And as long as inventory levels don't shoot up too high, it's going to be a very stable market in San Francisco. I have agents writing in San Francisco every single week now. And in most cases, we are going up against multiple offers, even in San Francisco. And so it's the tale of the haves and the have-nots in San Francisco. Always has been, always will be, in this kind of market where the best homes are getting 3, 4, 5, 6 offers. And then the other ones are getting like no offers for a few weeks and finally sell after a couple of months on the market. We can expect that trend to continue throughout 2022. At least at this point, I'm not seeing any signs of a strong resurgence in San Francisco. This is going to be a fairly long recovery period for San Francisco. From 2019, I expect this to take all the way through 2024, 2025 until we see the next housing dip. And then probably at that point, we'll see San Francisco take off and become what it once was before. Now, flipping on over to Solano County. In Solano County, we had 317 homes pending versus 192 homes on the market. Now, when you compare that to last year, we actually had roughly the same amount of homes on the market, but we actually had more homes pending. We had like 371 homes pending in February of last year. So we've seen a dip in activity level in Solano County. Let's pay attention. Let's continue to monitor this. I actually expect the pending sales to go up. Much like we're seeing the resurgence in San Mateo County, I expect a resurgence in Solano. It might be a trickle-in effect, but there's going to be a lot of people getting priced out of Contra Costa County, maybe even Alameda County, that make the trek up north to Solano County and actually decide to buy up there. So I expect a lot of what happens, a lot of the carnage, to price people out of the East Bay and into more like the Northeast Bay, maybe even the peninsula, or maybe even further east, like into the Stockton, Madera, Tracy area as well. And finally, in Marin County. So Marin County, we have 201 homes pending this month versus 138 homes on the market. Now, this is vastly different than where we were at last year, where basically we had 230 homes or so pending and active at the same time. So it was not neutral market. It was still a very hot seller's market, but we had a 100% absorption rate versus this year, basically like a 160, 170% absorption rate based on pending sales, which just means that the market has become infinitely more hot and really not due to the demand. The demand has stayed fairly consistent. What's dropped have been the inventory levels. And this is the story. This is the story of practically every single Bay Area county. And you're wondering, how could this possibly be? How could we be in this market where we're consistently seeing inventory levels continue to go down and down and down? And this is the new normal, I believe, because what we've done here in California, and specifically here in the Bay Area, is eradicate almost one entire segment of home seller. And that is the downsizer. And I've talked about this on previous videos, but what do all of these counties that have an inventory problem have in common? Well, they are usually destination areas for families to buy their dream home. But the boomers are now stuck in their dream homes. They can no longer downsize, because in order to downsize, they'd have to buy a home that's just as expensive as the profits that they receive from their property. For example, you bought a home in 1997 for $500,000 in Pleasanton. Well, guess what? That home is now worth $2 million. So you still have a loan on it, I'm sure. So you got $500,000 in basis, a $500,000 exemption. Okay, great. So now you have $1 million in gain. So you sell that. Then all of a sudden you're left with, maybe after capital gains and all of the fees and everything associated. So you sell that, you're left with $500,000 in gain, and that's $1.5 million that you have to go take and buy something new. Well, that's if you didn't have a mortgage on the property. Let's say that you had $200,000 left on the mortgage. Well, great. So now you have $200,000 less. You have $1.3 million. What can you buy for $1.3 million in Pleasanton? Not much. Not much. And so that's the issue, is that in order for that downsizer to make a move, they would have to move out of the area. Well, there's only one problem. They got family here. They've got kids here. Their grandkids are here. Their whole life is here. So why would they move? So now they're just going to borrow on the house, take a little bit more money out on the house, and stay in that property. And that segment of property is the one that everyone wants to buy. Why? It's the dream home. So all of the upsizers have nothing to choose from. The traditional first-time homebuyer market's moving along just splendidly, but we have a serious inventory problem in that range, in that dream home segment. And it's because no one's selling the dream home anymore. No one's selling. And this is going to be a problem that plagues the Bay Area for decades. This is a decade problem, not like a 1, 2, 3, 4 year problem. This is a decade-long problem or more that we are going to be experiencing. Inventory levels will not return to what they once were for decades because of this situation. If you've made it this far in the video, I would really appreciate it. Show us your love by hitting that subscribe button and giving us a thumbs up. It costs you nothing, but it really helps this channel. It helps me, helps us at Selling Silicon Valley get in front of more home buyers and sellers just like you. And as a token of my appreciation, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. You can text the word free shirt to the number down below, and we'll send you a free Selling Silicon Valley shirt just as a token of my love and my appreciation for being such a loyal subscriber and fan of this channel. That concludes this one, everyone. This is Danny Gould. I'm Selling Silicon Valley, and I will catch all of you in the next Silicon Valley Snapshot.